Hey guys, it's been a long time since my last Lord ranking list, and we've had two new Lords since then. We've had Ingrid, who we all know how Ingrid is, but I'll elaborate a bit later, and we have Ymiret as well. So these people weren't out by the time I did my other ranking, and on top of that, we also have a lot of meta shifting. We have a lot of different content, like Good Boss 2 came out. There's a lot of things that have changed the rankings drastically. Now, I should have made this video a little bit sooner to when Ingrid got released, but I didn't. So I figure now is a good time before we get our Nightmare Lord, which probably will not be for another month or two, is my guess. So when they come out, whatever it is that they are, I do not have any leaks on them, so sorry about that. But when they come out, I'll make another video. But for now, let's do a video with the release of Ingrid. Do you like Lucius, Elowen, Hex, any of these heroes? Do you want a better chance of getting him? Well, if you're planning on spending any time in the near future, then use smileone. So smileone is the official third-party payment platform for the game, and the main perks that it has is, first of all, there is a permanent discount, as you can see here. Everything is discounted quite a bit. So if you are planning on buying some W Gold or buying some in-game things, then smileone is the way to go because you can save money. There's also some limited top-up events. This one will be between these dates on the screen, and you will be able to get extra rewards for reaching certain milestones and get more bang for your buck. So if you would like to use smileone, use my links down below, my affiliate links, if you would like to support the channel. And thank you very much to smileone for sponsoring this video. Now, before I get into the ranking, I do have to kind of explain what I will be ranking them as. Now, they will be in order throughout the tiers, so 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then we have the tiers of Broken, which is the best of the best, absolutely game-breaking, game-changing. They'll help you like everywhere. Absolutely crazy units. Then we have Amazing. Amazing is units that are must-haves. They're really, really, really good in a lot of things, but they're not as good as the Broken tier, which are just straight-up game-breaking. And then we have Strong, which are for the lords that are exceptional. They're very good, but they're nothing too crazy compared to the ones above them. Then we have Below Average, which is like, it's not actually below average. They're actually worse than below average, but that's what I'm naming it because I don't know what else to name it. And this is for the lords that are not that good. They're good, but they're not that good, right? And then we have Letdowns, which are by far the worst. Now, they're not bad overall because in this game, I genuinely believe that there are no bad lords. But, there are some that are quite a bit worse than others. So that is where the Letdown tier comes into play. Now, I will be ranking them partially just based off of personal opinion and also just how I know the game, which I would like to think is pretty well. And I will further be kind of thinking about them in if they are super versatile and usable in a ton of areas, they get bonus points. And then if they excel a ton in certain areas, then they will also get more points. So you'll see a bit later that units that are not the best in every piece of content ever still can be ranked pretty high because they are the best option in certain areas. So just keep that in mind. Now, this is going to be a bit more geared towards endgame, which is what I know more. So if you are early game, just know that every single lord here is going to help you progress a ton, and they're all going to be really good. So if you pull one, do not feel disappointed. But this is just for the people who are a bit further along, and then for their ancient pity, they're pulling something garbage. Then you should be upset, basically, if that makes sense. So to start off, we got to start off with Venoma, and you guys know how I feel about Venoma in these rankings. She's a letdown. She is probably the best lord for progression because of her lord skill, which gives plus 30% initial rage on the first deployment to everyone, not just her faction members, but to everyone. She was my first lord. She helped me out a ton. I used her for AMR 18 with a really scuffed strat where I needed to like trigger Abomination's ult and all this shenanigans and stuff. And Venoma's really solid. But Venoma's also the worst lord as a unit by far. She is garbage at that, and her lord skill is not very good later. It just falls off a cliff, honestly. Because after a while, she just becomes less useful. And these rankings will be with the Lord skill in mind and also the unit in mind. So I will be valuing them both quite a bit. So units that have one and not the other are going to be a lot less than ones that have both, even if they excel more with like as a unit and their Lord skill is bad, then they might be a little worse than a unit that's slightly worse, but the Lord skill is better. Just keep that in mind. I should have said that at the beginning. But Venoma has neither of those. She has a pretty mid Lord skill. It's a good Lord skill, generally, but compared to everyone else, she has debatably the worst Lord skill out of everyone here, and she also is the worst unit. So I think it's not debatable that she is in the letdown tier. Actually, not good, at least for later on. Now we have Harz next, Fastidious' favorite hero ever. And I'm sure he would agree that Harz is in below average. So Harz is not that bad. He's a tank. He's a tank lord. He works really well with his faction because he's a Northern Throne. He's the lord of that, and he's also a pretty okay tank. The problem with Harz is a couple things. So number one in this game, unyielding is king for tanks. He has really good shields, which is the second thing that you need for tanks. But without his shield, he's like paper, and he immediately just gets dead. he just dies instantly if you're using him in any like actual hard tanking content, like Guild v Guild or anything. But in a lot of areas, like Codex, in the tank Codex, in a lot of different pieces of content, he's pretty good. Like Gear Dungeon 2, where you need a Northerner Lord generally, he's going to be very good. In Gear Dungeon 1, he's going to be very good. Gear Raid 2, he's amazing because you need a tank, you need good Northerners, and he's exceptional in that sort of regard. But later on, you get to the point where any tank kind of works for everything, and you don't really need those additional stats or those additional shields or all of those things. And then he just kind of falls off. Essentially what happens is later on, the tanks are so good that they don't even need Lord skills to tank properly. And a lot of the times you'll find yourself needing tanks that do something else. And Northerners don't really have that. Like, there's no Torodor for Guild Boss 2 in the Northerner faction. Like, there's not that type of versatility. And he's just not as needed later on. So he is quite a decent Lord. But once again, all the Lords are good. He falls flat. Moving on. Now, we do have Harz, another tank lord. There's only a couple lords that are tanks. And Cyrus is also an Esotericist lord. And while Esotericist lords are not the craziest lord skills ever, Cyrus is undeniably in broken tier. Cyrus is easily, and I mean easily, the best tank in the game. It is not close. He's the best Guild v Guild tank. He's one of the best tank codex tanks. He's amazing in, Gear Raid 2. He's an amazing lord for Gear Raid 1. He's an amazing lord for Arena. He's really, really, really good in, like other areas. He has one of the better lord skills because it's just really good. It works really well with his faction. 25% extra damage to all faction members when someone dies, and you have Laurel in that faction. You have Cyrus, who has summons and skeletons, and when the skeletons die, they count as that lord skill. It's very, very frequent, very, very good, and Cyrus is also one of the best lords as a unit, if not like a top 3, and he's really, really, really good. He is one of, if not the best hybrid in the game, where you can build him as the best tank, or you could build him as a really good DPS. Like for Conqueror Codex, he'll do like 100 mil plus on his own with no lord. If you're using someone else's lord, you could just slot him in as a damage dealer, and he does so well. His range is amazing. His summons are amazing. His damage reduction is amazing. He is really, really good. He's easily broken. He's absurd. It's ridiculous. But who's not broken? Morrigan. She's a letdown, I'll be honest. Cursed Cult, or Cursed whatever it's called, is the worst faction in the game by far. And factions do have to play a role in the lords. And while Morrigan has a really solid damage increase buff to everyone, it's not enough to really justify her existence. Like, you're gonna use her in what? Gear Raid 1, Gear Dungeon 1, I should say. after that, you're not really gonna use her. She's just like she's not that good because her faction is not good, and that's the main issue. You know, that's the main kind of drawback to having Morrigan, is that she's a cultist. She's a solid lord, sure. She's a terrible, terrible unit. I would never use her for like really anything. Sure, she can do some AoE damage, but you're never really gonna use her as that. She's just like she's a bad unit. Lord skill is okay, but bad faction just brings her down quite a bit. She's a letdown, unfortunately. When cultists get better, she will definitely move up. I can guarantee it. But cultists currently are not getting better. They do not seem like they are getting better. And Cyrus getting released pretty soon is not going to change anything. Let's be real. Now, moving on, we have Ingrid. This explains itself. So moving on, Devin. No, I'm kidding. But Ingrid is ridiculous. She is debatably a better unit than Pope, which is ridiculous. Her Lord skill is really good. She is a menace in all PvP content. In Guild v Guild, she is the best unit. It is not close. In Arena, she is the best unit. It is not close. She is amazing in pretty much all the gear aids. She has single target. She has AoE and insane range. And she does like the most damage increase you've ever seen. She has crazy high stats. Like 6,000 attack on a mage. It's like 1,000 plus higher than the second highest. It's crazy. Ingrid is absolutely insane. Craziest meta shift we've ever seen in this game. People were complaining about Boreas. Well, nah. Ingrid is the new crazy power creep. Ingrid is ridiculous. Easily broken. You cannot argue anything else. So now let's move on to something. I kind of want to go to something a bit more middle road. And I'm going to move on to Twinfiend. Now, Twinfiend used to be a lot better compared to the other lords, but he's still really good. Now, I will give Twinfiend a strong placement here. He's really solid. He is really good as the lord of his faction. When you trigger his ult, it essentially takes the other people's damage, cuts it off, and then does a big burst, scaling off of their stats. So he works really well with something like Zillatu, does a ton of damage to bosses, can do like a couple million in one hit. He gets his ult very fast. You know, he's great. Infernals is a very good faction. You know how it is. And he's really good. The main issue, though, is, first of all, boss killing is really easy now with all the new heroes like Valderon, Iovar, we're going to get to in a second, Solcadens, we got Pope, we got Ingrid. You know, like all of these new heroes that do more boss damage. Like, you know, Silas does crazy boss damage. Like, Arrogance does crazy boss damage. There's just so many heroes that do boss damage at a level that rivals Twinfiend that we didn't have before. And also for Twinfiend, you kind of have to have Zillatu to make him really worthwhile. If you don't have Zillatu, he becomes kind of whatever. And if you use him with stuff like Hex, for example, Hex actually loses damage, which is kind of a bit rough. So, you know, he's just not that exceptional. He's still very good, very useful, great in a lot of content. It's just his highs are not as high as they used to be. So he can only be in strong. I can't bring him any higher as much as I would love to. Twinfiend just is not that guy. Now, we are on to Demi now, and Demi also is going to be joining Morrigan in letdowns. Once again, same thing. Cultists are not that good, realistically. Like, it pains me for me to say it, but cultists kind of suck. Okay, Demi is a much better unit than Morrigan, I will say. She has really good slows. She's invisible a lot of the time. She's anti-heal. Very good, and she's bordering on below average, but I think she's just not that good in enough areas. Anti-heal is only good in about 2 areas of the game, Gear Raid 1 and Gear Dungeon 1, and while that is important, that's kind of it. She is really good in Guild v Guild, in Ymiret team with Anora, but you need like A5 Anora for those to be even viable. So therefore she can't even really be considered in there. You know, Demi just falls flat. Let's be real here. Same issues as Morrigan. Worse Lord skill, better unit, better hero overall because cultists are not that good. Let's be real here. Now, moving on, we have let me skip past Iovar, and I want to talk about a different unit, which I think is going to be Aracha. Kind of skipping around a lot, I know, but that's whatever. Aracha is amazing. She's amazing. Now, the reason why Aracha is amazing is not just because of her as a unit, even though she's really solid as a unit, but it's purely because of her faction. Now, there are two things that make Aracha so good. One is Silas, two is Hex. That's it, right? Piercers are some of the best faction because of those two heroes. Obviously, there's a lot of standouts like Nyx or whatever, but when you have some of the strongest units in the game, your faction is going to be pretty damn good. And also, her Lord bonus cannot be overstated. It is amazing. It's ridiculous. I would argue Piercer Lord bonus is the most important Lord bonus for progress, for content. The extra range is just so insane, and marksmen are essentially all in her faction, at least all of the good ones. So she's like buffing some of the best marksmen, which is an entire freaking class. And then she's also buffing them in a way that no other Lord is even comparable to buffing their units. And also, she just makes certain content trivial. Aracha is debatably the most versatile Lord, and she's definitely in the conversation for being the most versatile Lord. She's usable everywhere. I use her everywhere. She's insane. You cannot name many pieces of content where she's not usable. And she's just ridiculous. Like, for a little bit there, she was even meta in anti-air and AoE at the same time, which is kind of crazy. Now she's not, obviously, because Ingrid happened, but you get the idea. She's one of the most versatile. It's just, as a unit, she doesn't really stack up as some of these lords a little bit later. And she's just, like, her lord skills, while it is amazing, is kind of outclassed by some of these crazy ancient exclusive lords, like Iovar, the same faction. Now, Iovar is broken. He's better than Cyrus, easily. I don't think there's really that much of a discussion here. Iovar, crazy, crazy unit. Also usable in every piece of content. He's ridiculously strong. He's an amazing, amazing lord. And he's an amazing, amazing unit. And he's part of one of the better factions of the game. He's usable and even trivializes Gear Dungeon 2. He's amazing in Guild Boss, if not meta. He's amazing in Guild Boss 2. He's not full meta, but he is like one of the few options there. He's amazing in Gear 3. He's amazing in Void Rift. He's amazing in Codex. He's the best unit in Styx. He's the best. Like, he's just so good in so many things. It can't be understated how good he is. He is amazing. I would put him like right behind Ingrid. Ingrid obviously is far and away better, but Iovar is still like really, really, really good. Iovar has to be in broken. I don't think you can argue that he's not. So keep that in mind. Now we do have Elddr, the other Northerner Lord, and honestly, I would put him in the same spot. Elddr has gotten better. Last time I rated him right here. Now I think he has moved up to below average. He's gotten a lot better. Guild Boss 2, he is fairly viable. He's not that viable, but he is viable. He's solid in Gear Dungeon 2. Ardea exists, which is kind of the main basis here. Glacius got released. Glacius is very, very good with Elddr. The thing is, Elddr as a unit is pretty decent, but he just doesn't have that many areas, right? Like, to quote Alarl, one of my friends, Elddr isn't that great anywhere, but he's good pretty much everywhere. If that makes sense. He's kind of below average or just average, but he's usable everywhere, and he's pretty okay everywhere, but he doesn't really like stand out anywhere. You can't really name an area where Elddr is actually like that useful at all, but he's pretty decent. And that's kind of just the way you gotta talk about the Northerner faction. They're okay. Nothing too special. But they're decent, right? That's how I think of the Northerner faction. Now, moving on, we got Solcadens, the counterpart of Twinfiend. And Solcadens is amazing. Solcadens is really, really, really good. He has the highest damage output in the game in single hits. I've seen a Solcadens do over 10 million damage, but damage isn't really everything. Neither is single hit damage. He just isn't as good for a similar reason that Twinfiend isn't as good as they used to be, which is there are so many options to do this sort of damage that you don't really need them as much as you used to. And while they are still really good, Like Solcadens is usable in a lot of endgame content, and he does really high damage output. It's just if you had an option to pick between Solcadens or Pope for damage, you would always go Pope, right? It's really just an issue of power creep. Ingrid exists now. Iovar is amazing. Like, all of these units that keep coming out over and over again just make them a little bit less good. But Solcadens is still really good for a lot of aspects of the game. It's very, very, very good lord to have. Do not underrate him at all. He's still amazing. He's just not as good as he used to be. Now, we got Ymiret, the other newcomer, and Ymiret I would put in the strong category. Now, Ymiret does not have a Lord skill, neither does Ajax, who we will be getting to in a second. And the Lord bonus, essentially, which isn't even a Lord bonus, is as long as they're in the team, you get essentially a 4%, 6% of A2 to all damage sources. It's like a morale set by just having a unit in the field. Very, very solid. And Ymiret is also very, very solid. But that's kind of it. He's really, really good as a unit, but he's not like that good. He's decent in a lot of areas, but you would never really use him over the actual meta options. He's good in Gilvigold, high level. Like, he's one of the better endgame Gilvigold units, so that is maybe why I give him a pretty high rank. But like, outside of that, where are you gonna use him? Like, I have used Ymiret before. He's probably my least used on the list, though. But like, I struggle to find an area where I would want Ymiret over something else. That's why he's not as high. Because although he is good, he's not good enough to really justify his existence half the time. And as harsh as that might be, it's the truth. Ymiret, like, he's great to have. That's it. Right? Now, moving on to Valderon. Valderon was easily my most controversial placement on my last list. It's kind of funny, but people really hated my Valderon placement. It was kind of funny. And I've finally seen the light. Valderon is broken. One of the best lords in the game. I've come around. I know it might be crazy. I still don't like Valderon as much as you guys do, but he's a top 5 lord in the game easily. I can't argue it anymore. Now, I will put him below Iovar, and while that might be a bit controversial, I do think they are pretty even. I just value Iovar's usefulness in more areas, more than Valderon being really good in like arena and stuff, but just not as good overall for multiple pieces of content. But Valderon still is really, really good. His A3 is amazing, but I'm not really taking Awakenings into account in this, because like Iovar Awakenings are amazing, Ingrid's Awakenings are amazing, so if I included it, it wouldn't really change much. But just know that Valderon has like some of the highest damage output, especially for a ground unit. Chaotics are amazing. I've kind of come around that Ghan's Lord bonus isn't that much better, to the point where it justifies them being the same. I do think Ghan is worse, who I'll do next. But like, Valderon's damage output is great. He's great in Guild Boss 2. He's really, really fun to use, even though that's not something I'm taking into account. The thing is, his main staple is arena. And with the addition of Ingrid, one of the 2 areas where Valderon is meta and amazing is now gone, because Ingrid is better, right? Like, Ingrid is better in AoE by far, and so that's one use case, and he has fairly limited use cases where he is amazing, gone from him. But he's still really, really good in a lot of content. Like Epilogue came out, and Valderon was the best option for the hardest stage there. He's going to keep popping up. He's going to keep being amazing. And easily top 5 lord in the game. I've come around. You guys have made me come around. So you're welcome. But yeah, so Valderon is amazing. He's broken. You see how it is. And then Ghan is also there. Now, Ghan I don't think is as good. I don't think he's broken tier, but he's still very, very good. Chaotics are still one of the best factions in the game. And Ghan, while he is worse than Valderon, I would say, because he's not as good as a unit, his Lord skill is better. And he's an amazing, amazing buffer. He's no longer that meta in Gilvigold, unfortunately. He's no longer like that meta in a lot of areas, which is why he dropped a bit. But he has debatably the best damage increase Lord skill in the game. The damage increase is crazy. And with all these new Lord bonuses that are really unique and have really like strange effects, Ghan just straight up has a damage increase. And he works really, really well with his chaotics. Really, really good synergy. Ardea is in the faction. Sargak is in the faction. You know, you got like all of these amazing faction heroes, and Ghan is the faction lord that buffs them the most. While Valderon is better, Ghan is definitely up there. Now, moving on to Laya. Laya, like I mentioned, got a buff recently. And instead of 25% extra attack, I think it is, when there's like healing happening, I should probably read it again, but you get the idea. It's now 50%, which is crazy. They doubled it. Mostly to buff Ingrid, but it does inadvertently buff Laya, makes Watcher faction better, and Laya's really good. Guild Boss 2, she is insanely, insanely strong, and that really just makes her use cases a bit higher. But the thing is, there's so many freaking good ancient exclusives now that I can't put her above strong as good as she is. She's really good. One of the 4 main Rage Regeners in the game. You know, Rage Regen's very hard to find. She has a damage increase, which is amazing. You know, she's like the best healer in Styx. She's amazing in Guild Boss 2, where you actually do want her Lord skill. But you're still generally using her as a unit just for that Rage Regen and slight damage increase. And you're not really using her for her Lord bonus a lot of the time. And when you do, she's pretty good, but she's definitely outclassed quite a bit by the units above. Like for Guild Boss 2, she's amazing, but you're not really going to use her above Ingrid, Iovar, Valderon, Solcadens, Pope, who we'll get to in a second. You know, you're not going to use her for that as much. When Lucius does change, maybe she'll be better, but that won't really be that much influencing for, you know, her as a unit or her as a lord. But, you know, she's just pretty good. She's pretty good. I can't say anything more. She's like in the middle of the lords. She's really good. She's not that exceptional, but she's still really good, right? Does that make sense? I don't know. But moving on. Now we got Torodor. And Torodor, I'm debating putting in Broken. But I think I have to barely put him on the cusp of Broken, because I don't want that many units in the Broken tier. Torodor is amazing. He's broken. He's absurd. He's so underrated, and it makes me so sad every time. Torodor is busted, man. Like, I can't understate it. He's, in my opinion, the most important lord in the game. Straight up. I think you have to have Torodor. Part of it is because there isn't a second lord. Like, you're not going to need Aracha if you pull Iovar. Or you're not going to need Iovar if you pull Aracha. You're not going to need a Solcadens if you pull Twinfiend. Obviously, it's nice and it's better and all that stuff, but you're not going to need them. Like Ingrid, sure, you want them even if you have Laya, but they're not going to like game change anything but PvP content. Torodor is just so important for so many things. Like, he's the most important Guild Boss 2 Lord. He's the most important Gear Dungeon 2 Lord. You know, the reason why he's not up here is because he's not that exceptional as a unit as the other people, but he still has amazing stunts. He still has really good tanking capabilities. He has a revive. You know, he's really good in Guild v Guild. He's really good in Codex. He's really good in Arena. He's obviously not fully meta there, but like, he's still really good. He's one of the more versatile lords, and I would definitely crown him the most, the best normal lord, not including the ancient exclusives. And I don't think that's arguable. I think he's amazing. He's so underrated. It's insane. Nightmare is one of the best factions in the game right now. And Torodor is partially why. 30% damage increase to some of the craziest damaging faction in the game is insane. You can't go wrong with Torodor. He's absurd. But you know who you can't go wrong with? Praetussy. Praetussy, best lord in the game. Always is. He is kind of getting rivaled by Ingrid. But generally use Ingrid with Pope, because she is the only dual faction lord here. But like, Pope is just insane. I don't even need to justify this, okay? Pope is the best lord in the game, best unit in the game. It's not debatable. He's the best. No one's debating this. Like, if you want to try to debate this in the comment, go ahead. But you're wrong. Praetussy is the best. Ingrid, sure, is more oppressive. Sure. But Pope is better in more areas. You know, he's the best Guild Boss 2 unit in the game, debatably. Even not debatably. You know, he's amazing at just all content. I can't even just label off the content because he's just good everywhere. He has true damage, which is the most important piece of damage in the game because it goes through literally everything. It's BS. I don't know why they let him happen. I don't know why they gave him a banner, but I'm glad I have him because, oh my god, is he broken. Puppet's crazy. Puppet's crazy. I'm sorry for everyone who doesn't have him. Now, Ajax, to end it off on a nice note, Ajax I would put right here in strong tier. You know, once again, he has that buff. He's a really good unit. Probably one of the best guild units, but he needs High Awakening. You know, he's really useful. His cost is a bit high. He's really good in a lot of areas. He can be used with any faction member. Pretty good. But, you know, I think he's good in the middle of the road. Now, I think that's everything. I don't really have anything else more to add. I tried to fly through it a little bit, but I mean, 18 units, 2 minutes each, 30 minutes long. You got the idea, right? It's still going to be a long video. Now, that is my updated Lord ranking, updated for Ingrid. If things change, obviously this can change. If you don't agree, that's a-okay. Comment down below what you would change on my list. Obviously, it is my own opinion, so everyone's opinion is different. You know, you're obviously going to gravitate towards the lords you have and blah, blah, blah. And that's a-okay. Except Elddr. Elder's garbage. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you would like. And that's it for me. So, Destined signing out.